With Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 262.5, we have the second half to chapter 262, which was cut short and required a 1-month break before we got this second half, and this one doesn't disappoint. It gives us a lot of information. A familiar fan favorite face returns, and Sukuna has once again gotten the tables turned on him in a major way that is putting him on his toes, which that is a huge compliment to Yuta Okotsu. So this chapter picks up where the last one left off, where we see Rika and she's holding Yuta's body. You have Yuta and Gojo. They were previously swapping hands with each other, having fought inside of their domain expansion clash, and based on how it ends, the story, it was making you believe that Sukuna has just easily defeated Okotsu, but the truth is that Yuta is still firing on all cylinders and he is ready to continue the fight. It's at this point that the story starts dropping bombshell after bombshell on us by reminding us that this fight, it is using the ticking clock element of literature, where you start a countdown timer to get the audience ready to go with the anticipation that makes them read through the events even faster. It's a really smart and cheap way to really get your audience invested in the story that you're telling. It makes them think that there's a huge sense of dread. Either the hero wins or the hero loses. Everything just happened in the last chapter with that domain clash and the battle that happened before that. All of that was 2 minutes having gone by. So there are now only 3 minutes left, which means that Yuta has to leave everything out on the table if he's going to bring home the victory against Sukuna. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. He is putting everything he learned while training under Gojo back when they were doing that body swap training in an effort to close the gap with Sukuna and eventually overpower Sukuna. But he's running into the same issue that we talked about earlier, which is that he's not Satoru Gojo. He's using Gojo's body, but he is not Satoru Gojo. This is even more so interesting when you realize what it is that Sukuna's figuring out here, which is that while Yuta is using Gojo's body, Rika doesn't come with that body, and this of course means that Yuta can only use the techniques that belong to Gojo while he's using his body, so he can't use curse techniques that he copied before using his curse technique copy, which is completely understandable given that Yuta in Gojo's body, using some of the techniques that Yuta copied, he'd be damn near unstoppable. We also learn here that Yuta has noted that Sukuna, he is hampered from being able to use his world-cutting slash since his left arm is gone, and Yuta is assessing the situation to see what's going to work out the best for him in terms of finding an opening against Sukuna. However, that is a lot easier said than done because Yuta is struggling to properly use Gojo's powers right now as he tries to use Limitless, and he's running into the issues of not being able to properly use Gojo's body, like the length of his arms and the aspects of Limitless, and Sukuna, he's clocking it right away, which that makes a lot of sense. Sukuna had a pretty extensive fight against Gojo, so if anyone knows what Gojo's body's fully capable of, it would be Sukuna, because out of everyone, only Yuji and especially Gojo were able to give Sukuna a true run for his money, with both Gojo and Sukuna going very heavy, deep into the bag of jujitsu techniques. A big part of the reason why Yuta is struggling is because he can't really use Limitless properly because he doesn't have the 6 eyes. This is on top of the fact that Yuta is just having issues with the length of Gojo's body for his attacks, where he's misjudging the distance when he's in hand-to-hand combat with Sukuna, and there's actually a bit of real-world information thrown in here when you think about it. So with Gojo being 6'3", he's well above average height, and Yuta is only 5'9", so that's a lot of extra height you have to get used to. That's an extra 6 inches, another half foot to deal with. Yuta just went from being average height for an American male, which is 5'9", and over in Japan where they're fighting, the average height is 5'7". So at best, Yuta is only used to being slightly taller than most. All of a sudden, he's a lot taller than most, and he is struggling to adjust in that. The mistiming of attacks by Yuta, that's what's leading to Sukuna as they're fighting to start taking the time to recall the information that he heard from Kenjaku about Yuta's copy ability, and Sukuna's running through all the options that Yuta should have. He quickly deduces Yuta can't use his copy technique to use other jujitsu, and even if he could, he can't use multiple curse techniques that he copy at the same time simultaneously, particularly when he's inside his domain expansion. And when he starts looking at the options that Yuta has while using Gojo's body, he deduces that he's only limited to what Gojo can perform. This leads to Sukuna going, what happens when Yuta reaches the limit on his copy ability, which he knows there's a limit because Kenjaku told him, and he wonders when that time hits 0. He's realizing that he needs to start preparing for the possibility that either Yuta leaves Gojo's body or Yuta came into this fight realizing there was no going back, and so he's going to leave everything out on the table, which makes Yuta extremely dangerous. However, this is where the dramatic irony kicks in. So we as the audience, we know it's a 5-minute time limit and there's only 3 minutes left. And so we also know that as Yuta's preparing his Hollow Purple, we have to keep in mind the mini flashback we have in this chapter where Gojo is telling Yuta his cursed energy control, it is lacking like crazy. As he puts it, it's quote all over the place. And it just makes you look at Gojo's demeanor where he previously said, man, it don't matter what you do. I'm going to win regardless as to what it is that you plan. And it also makes you look at Shoko taking a similar thing of like, yeah, of course, we can do this plan that you're doing. Both of them thought Gojo was going to win. And it just speaks to how well in control Gojo was of his own body and how hopeless Yuta trying to use Gojo's body properly. That's the stance that Gojo had taken. So even though Yuta is going through Gojo's memories one at a time, it again just shows you that when it comes to Gojo's skill, it's on a different level. And so despite Yuta having his body and his memories, even a generational prodigy like Yuta, he is running over walls that he has to climb over as he battles Sukuna in Gojo's body. This leads to Yuta coming to the conclusion that since Sukuna can't use his world-cutting slash, which we know that's how he killed Gojo in their fight, and him being able to use domain amplification against Yuta right now so he can bypass Yuta using Gojo's infinity, Yuta realizes Hollow Purple is his best bet to take down Sukuna. Now, on a face level, it makes a lot of sense to go this route. That's the smartest thing you do. As we saw, when Gojo used a combined blue and red to form a Hollow Purple against Sukuna during their fight, it did a lot of damage. If there's one ultimate nuclear weapon that Yuta can drop on Sukuna to basically end the fight right now, as time is winding down, it's going to be that move. But as we've seen, he's having a lot of trouble using Gojo's techniques. Once Yuta begins using the chants and the hand sign movements for Hollow Purple, Sukuna steps in, refusing to lose to a bootleg Gojo. But this is where Sukuna has made his mistake. Yuta basically says, I might not be able to use cursed techniques I copy, but right now, don't think I can't have a cursed technique used on you that I've copied. And this is where we see Yuta drop a tape recorder that he had with Inumaki's voice that was on it, and it's telling Sukuna to not move, and somehow Inumaki is coughing up blood as he's speaking the order in real time, it appears. And Sukuna is trapped at this point while Yuta is firing up the Hollow Purple. And that's where we have the chapter end off, where we have to start asking ourselves the question. We all know that Sukuna, he is a mad lad, but is he really this much of a mad lad that he can tank a Hollow Purple at point blank range while unable to move and having sustained this much damage? Or will the narrative, as it has established earlier, will it lead to Yuta not properly being able to use Gojo's technique, even though he's learned to fight better with his body as the time is going on? Will that come into play? And will that be the reason why Sukuna ends up tanking the attack? But either way, the narrative, it has you on pins and needles, wondering how much damage is Sukuna going to take from here, because in theory, this should kill him. However, I want to leave off on this. Now that we know Inumaki's cursed speech can work on Sukuna, even though it's only brief and it appears as if it's causing a lot of strain given how strong Sukuna is, why didn't they just deploy Inumaki in combination with Higuruma and the Executioner's Blade? Maybe they were worried it would damage Fushiguro, but at this point, given how hard Gojo is fighting Sukuna with killing intent, regardless of the fact that killing Sukuna would also kill his student Fushiguro, and Higuruma was trying to use the Executioner's Blade when he fought Gojo, Fushiguro just seems like he's gonna be collateral damage right now anyway. In the end, this is where we are, so we do have to see what Gege's cooking up here. But while you wait for the new chapter, click here on the left for the new Kaiju number 8 video on this channel, or you can click here to watch this Jujutsu Kaisen video if you need more Jujutsu Kaisen to fix your addiction while we wait for the next chapter.